everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the second event of the semester, the Alumni panel. Today we'll be joined by some really amazing artists who are all graduates of, Columbia. Yeah, so first up we have Ariel. So Ariel, how about you tell us a little bit about your journey and like where you are now?
Hi, I'm Ariel Freeman. Nice to meet you all. I graduated in 2018 and I came out here in August that year. Started networking from that. So Columbia offered this like great program called Week in LA. So a few of us from 2D and 3D sides of animation, we came out here for a week and we networked with some Columbia alumni and we got some tours, and I was able to meet some people through that. And that's what gave me the start for networking. So I started networking then. And then I came out here in August. I got a couple interviews at Cartoon Network just because I was in the right place at the right time. And then I ended up getting a couple more interviews at other places and basically kept interviewing until I got my first industry job, March 2019, on the show Final Space. I worked as a production assistant on season 2 of Final Space. So that show, because it was the end of production, there's only 6 months left for that season. So by the end of that, I needed to find new jobs. So I ended up getting a job on The Simpsons the next year. So by 2019 in August, I was working on The Simpsons, and I've been there ever since. So that's at least like how that's my journey there. So really what ended up happening was I got to a point where I just moved out here permanently in November 2018. And I cold emailed, I reached out to people on LinkedIn, and I tried to set it up where I would get a coffee chat with a new person each day that week. So each week I try to get as many people as I could to talk to. The most important thing was that I learned a lot every time I met someone. Through their journey, their experience, and just like having that time to talk to someone, you can really get a lot of like the jitters out and really understand and how the industry works. And I also asked a couple of my contacts to give me like mock interviews and look over my resume. And in the end, it got to the point where I was able to interview well, and I was able to talk to people and just be myself in front of them. So networking is not just about like getting contacts. It's also about like making friends and understanding yourself through other people. I think the hardest thing and the most unexpected was basically how LA worked in itself, because kind of getting through that and understanding like how things worked was one of the hard parts, but also it was unexpected how many people I'd meet along the way, because I don't know, everyone's coming out here, like everyone. And it's not just for the film industry, like the auto industry is here too, and like the dairy industry and Silicon Valley, and everything's in California. So I think one of the biggest surprises was meeting so many new people and getting to know like how they got here and like why they moved, and all the difficulties they went through. And I don't know, everyone's story is just so fascinating. So yeah, the hardest thing, I guess, was just like taking that first step and moving out here. I would have started networking in high school if I knew that that was a thing or how to do it. So I would recommend start reaching out to people now or 5 years ago, or basically as soon as you possibly can, because like the more people you talk to, the more chance they'll see you as a person, less as a resume or as a name on a computer. Because you are a person, you are real, and they need to see that and they need to trust that, so they feel comfortable hiring you. So that's something that I was less experienced with when I first graduated, but like classes like Julian's class and portfolio development was very helpful, because with portfolio development, he told us to connect with 3 people in the industry and call them, cold email them. Basically, that was part of the class. So that gave me like my first steps into the networking world. So reach out, talk to as many people as possible, join networking groups, join Women in Animation, the Creator Society. They're both amazing. And there's also like Latinx Animation, there's Black and Animate, there's, there's so many amazing organizations where you can network and meet so many different people. The hardest thing is that once you get your first job, that's when the hard part begins. Because trying to navigate the industry is very difficult, because you got to be ready for the job you want, and you got to make sure that the job you want is like the job you're fit for. So like, for example, if you're applying to work at a company, you're like, oh, this is my dream company, it's the perfect job for me. And you interview, and it turns out that like you don't click on the person, your personality doesn't really click with the crew, then then you got to like change your expectations around to like fit like what's works for you, because sometimes the job you're interviewing for is not the job that you're perfect for down the line. Like, because I didn't expect that I'd like be working for a show like The Simpsons, but like it's really what you don't expect that ends up helping you in the long run. A lot of classes really helped a lot in Columbia. Kind of like there's some classes like that I took that were like outside the animation program that also helped, but like really I take a lot from what I learned from Julian's classes, and I use it every day out here. There's so much about networking, so much about like preparing like your own ideas like to be viewed and to be sold, because you have to sell yourself every day, and you have to sell your ideas and basically sell to everyone that you're there. Like and then networking makes the world go round. So in Julian's portfolio class, I learned networking. In Julian's business and animate content class, I learned how to sell myself and sell my ideas. So those are things that you're going to take with you for your whole career. But not just that, also I learned a lot from from Jason's 2D animation class with learning all the different technologies in the industry. I recommend specifically Harmony and Storyboard Pro, because that's used by everybody. But understanding how like Flash works, understanding how Photoshop, FileMaker, everyone uses FileMaker. So basically take technologies, learn those classes. One of the things that they looked at me when I interviewed for The Simpsons was Maya. I learned Maya in several classes at Columbia, and that was super helpful. When you're doing the team project with Jim and Ron, you're working as a team for the first time in Columbia. So take that with you and like put that on your resume, and basically like address that I played this role into making this film happen. So I want what basically everyone I've talked to in this industry wants. I want to create and run my own show, and everyone in this industry wants it. It's kind of great though, because like everyone would make an insanely like different show and would provide like something new. But for me, I want it to be like more like, I want it to be script driven, kind of like Avatar: The Last Airbender. So I've been learning a lot about writing scripts, and I've also been learning a lot about like storyboarding different types of scenes. And basically when it comes to like getting to a showrunner position, there are two routes you can take that will eventually lead there. There's the storyboarding route and the writing route. I gotta say both are equally difficult, but in different ways. Like you need to have completely different skills at the right time for both directions. So it's very difficult to get to that point, but you also have to have the idea. So understanding how the development process works and how the industry like looks for new ideas is very helpful, and also creating as much of the idea as you can on your own end. So what I'm doing right now is I'm developing a comic and a pilot that kind of go with it. So eventually I'll build up the courage to use social media and actually post it, hopefully create an audience base that can help with eventually pitching it down the line. But right now I'm gonna learn all I can about how the production works to make sure that the show can last as long as possible, because Simpsons has literally seen it all. So learning how to like work with different people and understanding like how the budget works is very important, and knowing like what you can afford with the idea you have, and just everything. So if you're in a job in the industry and you're like that foot in the door, and you want to get into like an art position, and you want to get into like a different position, still take your time, because like there's so much you can learn from like production. There's so much you can learn from that first job and from that first place, and just like make sure that like you're really ready to move forward.
Yeah, so it looks like in the chat, Jonathan asked, did you ever meet Algene?
No. No, but I almost met Matt Groening twice. Like first time he kind of bumped into me, but he was with his granddaughters. I didn't want to bother him. And the second time was like another situation. I just didn't want to bother him. I also almost met Rebecca Sugar once. I actually probably could have talked to her that time. I just, build up the courage, guys. Build up the courage to meet your heroes.
I asked because The Simpsons currently, like Algene has been the showrunner since season 15, I believe. So I thought that was, going to The Simpsons, you would meet him, but I guess not.
Well, actually, the showrunners and the writers work in a different building. So I work with the animators and directors.
Oh, okay.
So I know all the directors. I met David Silverman. I met like all the directors. And
What's David like?
Oh, he has a new hat every time I see him, and he plays
I bet.
the tuba. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. I spoke to him once on Twitter. It was amazing. It was so surreal. I just commented. I was like, wow.
He's really funny, and he's delightful, and he's very good at the tuba. So he played during the holiday Zoom we did. He played his tuba that spits fire.
We have another question in the chat is, what does networking mean to you?
Really, it means making new friends, honestly. Like if you don't think of it as like someone who'll get you a job, think of it as someone who is just there for you, someone you can like talk to. Because I moved out here, I didn't have any like support group. I didn't have any family out here. I just moved out here by myself, and networking was kind of a way for me to also like find an excuse to like have like a friend group to know people. And a lot of people I networked with, I still hang out with. And well, not during a pandemic, but you know what I mean. So really, when you're reaching out to someone, think of them as like someone who's passionate about the same things you are, and you just want to have a conversation and learn about how they got to where they are, so that you can like just learn for yourself, and then down the line you'll pay it forward for someone else. You'll network to someone else. And so I cold emailed several like producers and just people who like worked on shows I liked. They about maybe 3 of them reached out, like responded back to me. One of them was the producer of Final Space. He worked on Young Justice. He worked on Gravity Falls. He worked on all these amazing shows. He's a super nice guy, super like awesome guy. So what ended up happening was he gave me the contact information for the head of production at Shadow Machine, because like at the time like there was no openings, and then like a week later turns out there was an opening, and I got an interview, and ended up becoming the new PA. And really that's because I reached out. I put myself in that situation where I was someone they were thinking of when they're trying to fill a position, and I was able to and after all of my time interviewing at other positions, I was able to get to the point where I was comfortable being myself in the room. And that's what got me my first job. And then I did the same thing when I interviewed for The Simpsons. The difference is that 2 weeks later, I followed up and they had an opening. So really, there's not really any luck in this industry. You got to make your own luck. And do that, you got to be the one that you got to be on their mind. You got to be someone they have a relationship with, like they know in some way, and you got to have the skills they're looking for at the time. So you got to like put yourself in as many situations as possible where you can get that like those 3 things with the people you're talking to. Because sometimes even if you go through, so I ended up interviewing a couple times at DreamWorks, and I went through the recruiter. Everything's great, DreamWorks, awesome. But most of the time, they already have someone in mind. And it's usually like an intern that worked with them in the past, or maybe a PA that was there and then returned to that position. And so, like most of the time, it's someone else they have in mind. So the trick is you got to try to get as many situations for yourself to get into that room where you're able to talk to the people hiring. And to do that, you got to like reach out to as many people as possible. So cold emails, coffee chats, one-on-one, just getting in contact with as many people as possible. And everyone, seriously, everyone is like, if they respond to you, they are happy to talk to you. Like, so you don't have to worry about like stepping anyone's toes, because they will respond. They will let you know, like, if they're like busy. Really, they respect that you reached out, and just keep in mind that, like, just be yourself. You're just talking about animation with other people who are passionate about animation. That's how this industry works.